Thank you, Elmer, for the introduction. He also was the previous chair of AKB50, so it's been an honor to continue this legacy as well as work with great people to really make an advancement. So for today, I'm going to talk about how you can engage as a TRB volunteer, what that means, and Ruth teed it up really nicely to talk about how we also engage with the technical committees. So I'll first briefly go over at a high level just what is TRB, what our actual standing committees do, and how we contribute to the AASHTO process, and then we'll conclude with how you all can get involved. And I think that's where the power resides and how we want to encourage you, if you feel so led, to partake. So just out of curiosity, I like more engagement. How many of you have already heard of TRB? Excellent. Hands down. Okay. How many of you have attended TRB pre-COVID? Nice. How many post, oh, I guess we're not post-pandemic, but how many after 2021? Okay, so there's some opportunities there. So I'm also going to talk about how you can actually look forward to that process. So TRB is a part of the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine. Like Elmer said, you can think of us as the research arm or the research branch for more so leading how these knowledge gaps kind of can bubble up and what we can do as scientists and engineers to help with improvements and innovation as it relates to research, convening, and advising. So in terms of research, TRB and its staff produces more than 140 documents. More than 800 peer-reviewed papers are conducted. So we're talking about documents spanning from bicycles and pedestrians all the way down to our home in terms of bridges. Convening at the annual meetings is the bigger meeting, and we were getting about 20,000 plus attendees from all over the world to talk about all things transportation. And then advising, that's where I look at it as the boots on the ground work that actually takes place with the standing committees. There are more than 8,000 apparently volunteers that span from committee members to also panel members. I'll touch upon how you can even be involved as a panel member. So that's kind of that three-pronged approach that TRB has. So in terms of the committees, as I mentioned, there are over 900 committees. To be a part of the committee, I'll talk about that. There are some layers in that, but the committee's purpose essentially is to think about these knowledge gaps and ways in which we can advance, or maybe setting the research agenda in terms of these research needs statements that I'll get into. The committees consist of practitioners, academics, and other transportation officials. You have to be selected to be on the committee. Being a friend of a committee is a good first start. And your pathway, once you get involved, is similar to ACI, then you can work your way up to actually being a part of the committee. There is a composition that TRB keeps in terms of how many DOT people they have, how many international folks they have, and academics to kind of balance the scales. Another way, in addition to being on a committee, just volunteers and just being an expert or subject matter expert, there are ways in which folks can serve on the cooperative research program panels, where you formally apply and you express your knowledge and you provide your CV, but you're contributing particularly to a topic for which they need evaluation and guidance for the research. So the CRP panels are broken up in actually 4 areas. I've actually served obviously on the NCHRP, things related to highways. That's the National Cooperative Highway Research Program. There's also one on transit for Transit Cooperative Research Rail Program. I'm actually going to be on a panel related to something in terms of railway bridges. So people that are knowledgeable in those areas to serve as panel experts to guide the research. Then there's one on behavioral traffic safety as well as airports. So many ways to get engaged, but the first step is essentially become a volunteer. So as Ruth mentioned, we are the standing committee, so AKB50, this Seismic Design and Performance of Bridges Committee, our kind of parent committee, and the technical committee for AASHTO is T3 in terms of Seismic. Our job as a committee is to review papers that we solicit in our call for papers. We'll have a call for papers that should be going out in about the next month or so on various topics related to our priorities that we've established as the committee. We then utilize those papers to formulate our lectern sessions and build out the program similar to ACI, where it's either lectern sessions or poster sessions. Even as a committee, we work on problems similar to ACI, but either e-circulars or other matters that we think we want to bubble up, or just other papers. And also, of course, participating in webinars and workshops at the annual meeting. But the main bullet point and where we really feed into setting these kind of research priorities is getting involved in writing the research needs statements. This is where I think of it as a meeting of the minds. So we are related to coming together and coming up with where the knowledge gaps are. So they're kind of two levels in terms of writing a synthesis paper or submitting topics for kind of what we're assessing are these research needs statements. These research needs statements, let's see if I can mark this. These research needs statements can be submitted by anyone. The only prerequisite is that you must have support from one DOT. Lee is going to talk more about that and kind of show how it really moves forward. But again, we come up with the ideas. Once the ideas are formulated at the committee level, we are then have those that are submitted to the respective technical committee for their evaluation, and then it moves on, and if selected, the Federal Highway has funding to then push some of those research needs statements into problem statements that are then supported by the NCHRP. So it's a clear pathway for which you're able to help with setting the research agenda. Even if you are partake in the research needs statement, if you still formulate a team to actually bid on the proposal, if it actually gets through the final loop of the NCHRP process, that's totally free and clear, but it's a great way to kind of see what the pressing problems are so that you can really be engaged and be a part of the action. As an example for how the AKB50 Standing Committee has evolved, we've utilized the research needs statements to help focus our work. And similar to how we've evolved for the 341, ACI 341 committee, we're largely focused on performance-based seismic design. From our research needs statements, we were able to actually bubble up and actually get one of those accepted as a problem statement to be funded for NCHRP. On earthquake-induced bridge displacements. That was definitely a labor of love. I think I looked back at the notes. Elmer submitted that research needs statement back in 2021, maybe-ish. But it really had to be formulated. We had to massage it a little bit so we can get that buy-in from all the states so people could understand its relevance and its importance, not just for seismic states, but just as we look at design and displacement-based design practices. So we're really excited about that. At the committee level, we were also able to start developing what our vision and framework was for how we wanted our research direction to go, or at least our ideas for which we wanted to address those knowledge gaps. So coming soon to a theater near you, one of the products that we have would be our wrist-targeted ground motions for bridge design. Your very own Lee Marsh and Tom Murphy, who are committee members, well, friends of the committee, are going to be delivering a webinar, kind of hot off the press topics related to wrist-targeted ground motions. So not only do we have people on the committee who are doing the work, we're also disseminating that work so other people can have access to it. And then we've also have done workshops in the past on the basics or getting back to basics of seismic design. And another place where all of you can play a part is even the call for papers and how we solicit for new ideas and then relevant topics for submitting papers. As a committee, we consider the research needs statements, like we said, can be submitted by anyone. And then as a committee, we rank those statements so that we can then push the top two onto our respective technical committee. So we do have play in how that's done in a process. But one of the reasons why we were selected as the Blue Ribbon Committee was given our track record of success for having core people and active people doing the work and developing these research needs statements. And we've been able to develop more than 21 research needs statements as a standing committee since 2006, which is astounding. We're very active and we're productive. But we have people who are really committed to the process. So if you become a member of our committee, marketing pitch, if I can, or if I'm allowed, if you become a volunteer, you will actually see the fruits of your labor evolve. So we've looked at topics and actually have gotten funding from topics related to columns and energy dissipating devices all the way down to now. You can see these evolution and how these topics are now formulating into guidelines and even going further. And we're here with 2023 with the recent problem statement, which I think they might have a contractor for that. I have to check on that. Or it's been accepted. I think so. So we're really proud of that, and that's really kind of what helps sets us apart. And there's also a reason why we realize that we also need more people involved, and also getting that knowledge from ACI and bringing that to the table with TRB. So we've had approximately $2.5 million of research needs statements allocated and we've been able to also be successful, even this is just as our standing committee in terms of receiving support for synthesis topics. So we're really proud of that work, and it definitely takes a strong team of folks. So everyone can get involved. I think I grabbed this tagline from TRB in quotes, and I quote, "Everyone interested is invited." If you, I guess you can pull your phone out if you want to scan this. This will actively take you to the TRB site so that you can become a member. There's kind of no strings attached, so you become a friend of a committee. That's the first step. You select which committee you want to be a part of. You can be a friend of many committees. Although I'm on the standing committee for AKB50, I'm also a friend of many committees, and I think that's really important in this exchange of knowledge. So a friend, by definition, you can self-nominate, is someone who can attend the committee meetings, actively participate, and exchange information. But being a friend is also a good pathway towards becoming a voting member or committee member, and showing your diligence through this process. Many friends are considered for a membership after participating. So with that, I conclude, and I thank you for your time. And I'll take any short questions, I think is the protocol.
Please use the microphone, but absolutely.
I'm just saying, in the friends category, some of the, industry professionals or companies may prohibit, how many activities we can get involved with in a year's time with a budget. But my other thing is many bridges are functionally obsolete, but many highways, state and federal highways, are also functionally obsolete. How is that being addressed in your committee standing to upgrade the infrastructure from your green book, which is the primary design book, if I'm not mistaken, right, for main arterial roads and interstate highways?
Good question. I'll speak real loud.
Sure, yeah.
But I'll speak to that only because I'm a DOT person. So the AASHTO Green Book addresses the roadway geometrics, grade, cross slope, super elevations, those kind of things. And that is addressed also through the same process, but through different committees. So Monique has talked about sort of the structural concrete. There would be asphalt or concrete pavement. It's sort of on a different branch, but it works the same way. So you can go online, go to the committee that has the focus of your research interest or your professional interest, and become a friend. Just by clicking on it, you'll be involved in all their correspondence and communication. So I'm still a friend of Monique's committee, and I get copies of their meeting minutes, solicitation for presentations, webinars, workshops, and it's the real meeting notes. It's not just, some fancy flyer.
My question involves, though, around the fact of making structurally obsolete either freeways or bridges. They're still functional,
Yep.
but you have to upgrade them. How is that how that can be done through a process like this in terms of community research?
I'll use an example, try to explain by example. Okay. So let's just say you want to focus on functionally obsolete bridges. And Derek, who's with Federal Highways, will correct me to say there are no such thing as functionally obsolete bridges anymore. The terminology is changing, that due to past engagements, structurally deficient and functionally obsolete are not sufficiently clear to the general public. So, but I know what you mean. It just means a skinny bridge. Yeah, exactly. It's a skinny bridge, right? So the question is, what's the problem with skinny bridges? So that is probably a green book, a highway design issue, more than an AASHTO bridge committee issue. So we care about functionally obsolete bridges, narrow bridges, but in most bridge offices, we don't program or select the priorities for bridges for replacement. That comes out of a much broader perspective of the transportation network. So in Alaska, we have a planning section. They look at traffic projections, growth, a new subdivision or a new mine might open. What might that do to the infrastructure? And what might be a functionally obsolete bridge, still adequate, but narrow, so maybe not meeting safety standards. In any event, let's just say you have a better mousetrap. You say, I'm interested in this topic, and I think I can help you find a better way to classify and prioritize needs. So you would go to the committee that addresses that, become a friend, read the work. You could type up your own research needs statement. There's a form online. You can fill it out. You can submit it to the respective TRB committee. and they'll evaluate it. We collect a library of these research needs statements that are actually also online. You might go on that website for that committee, look through their research needs statement and say, there's 3 of these that are talking about what I'm talking about. Your research needs statement might differ in saying, I'm pulling these 3 together and I'm going to explain the priority. Darn it. But it is an alarm. To continue, you would then say, this is clearly a higher priority, it needs more attention. As again, by example, as Monique mentioned, we have a research project that got funded after 3 tries through the process. And each time we tried, I hate to use these words because people don't like it, but we had to dumb it down. And you say, what do you mean, dumb it down? The audience who evaluates the research needs statement aren't other bridge engineers. They're transportation officials. They may not have anything to do with bridge or concrete or technical issues. And when you put things clearly at a technical level for your peers, there's a lot of jargon and specificity that might be lost on our bosses, right? So we simplify. After the 3rd try, the simplification was, we're calculating earthquake displacements wrong, and if we screw this up, it's going to be a problem. Oh, I see, it's bad. Yeah, yes, that's what we meant, it's bad. So that might be your research needs statement. Collect, dumb it down, make it clear why it's a high priority. It's a safety issue. So for example, if you had data that showed the accident data around narrow bridges versus wider bridges, that you would see a call to arms, right? Then the TRB committee, if they rank it high enough, it advances through that mechanism. It ends up in the corresponding AASHTO committee, like if it was a bridge committee. They're going to combine that with other research needs statements from that committee. So they don't have to use TRB. It's not the only way that research needs. A state DOT or committee member can bring it in. As Monique said, the only prerequisite is a state DOT has to endorse it. So at the bottom line, it's like, who's the chief bridge engineer that endorses this? And once you have a high priority research needs statement, I don't think you have a problem getting an endorsement. And oftentimes we have multiple states endorse. One of the things we didn't mention is that in general, the technical committee structure is looking for a national representation. On seismic, that's kind of hard to do. And I don't want you all to think that this is a seismic discussion. Most of the committee who put this session together, like myself, is a seismic guy. So I'm working with the experts that I know firsthand. But this same mechanism works for concrete structures, steel structures, if you had some interest in that, and so forth. But they are looking for a national perspective. So if you got an endorsement from Missouri and Washington State, that's the kind of spread they'd like to see, as opposed to a seismic topic, which is California, Oregon, Washington, and Alaska. That's a tough sell. There's 10 states who care about that. So it is an uphill battle for us. So it's probably a long-winded answer, but does it shed a little light on what?
A little better, yeah.
Okay.
I can discuss it with her.
Yeah, absolutely.